Thank you for auditing the Always Positive new music review show hosted by a French professor who might be bending the rules a little bit with his Always Positive policy. Now, I had a different title for this. I was going to call it the Unsettling Sermons of Arcade Fire. But around halfway through one of the songs, this little pithy expression popped up in my head. Millennial dad music. And I couldn't get it out of my head. And on my fourth and fifth listen to this album, it stuck around. So that is my title. Are Arcade Fire Millennial Dad Music? Or is Arcade Fire Millennial Dad Music? I'm not quite sure if we should refer to them singular or plural. And listen, my answer is going to be yes. And that's going to piss a lot of people off. First of all, those who think highly of me and think that such a clickbaity, stupid title is beneath me. In which case, that's fair. But just ride with me. And if you love Arcade Fire and you find that term insulting, ride with me as well. I'm going to nuance this position quite a bit. Now, you may be wondering, why am I talking about this? I mean, I don't talk about music I don't like. And it's not even that I don't like this album. Like, there's a couple songs on here that I love and I think are great. A couple songs which I think are very much not. But the main thing is that part of the reason I do this channel is there's a huge gap in my knowledge of popular music. As I've discussed countless times on this channel, between 2002 and 2018, when I started this channel, I just didn't pay attention to music. I became a dad, I went to grad school, I got tenure, I did all these things, right? So Arcade Fire and their seminal first album, Funeral, came out 3 days after my 27th birthday. At that point, I was in my first semester at grad school. Go Gauchos. I would be having my first child within the year. My mid-20s music death had already happened. So Arcade Fire existed as this band that I was sort of vaguely aware of. You know, last Sunday, I did a review of Future, and it's very similar. Like, these artists who I'm aware of, but because they haven't released something I want to review on the channel, my knowledge is still lacking. But as I like to say, as I put on my mug merch here, ignorance is profound. That is my belief, that there is profundity. Not only is my ignorance profound, like, Sky, how can you call yourself a music critic and you don't know Funeral? I don't know Funeral. But I'm going to share with you my experience with Arcade Fire with no previous knowledge. Now, I put a call out on my community page to ask people what should I expect. And it was all over the place. Some people said, expect another crappy album. Some people said, expect a return to form. Some people said, expect a partial return to form. It doesn't seem like the critical consensus amongst the fans is even that set. Now, I tell you that I was a completely blank slate, but that's not entirely true. You see, I'm a Generation Xer, right? I was born in 1977, and I have always associated Arcade Fire as being millennial music. Now, I don't even know, I can't sing you a single Arcade Fire song that's not on the album We that I'm going to be reviewing. But, like, I just get the sense that they're one of those whoa bands. There was, like, a series of, like, upbeat, hooray for people bands that came out in the 2000s that had these whoa, you know, Optimism and Subaru commercials. You know, like, that's what I associate it with. I remember seeing a picture of the band on stage and there was like 40 of them and they're all smiling. I think there was maybe a big drum involved. That kind of bright-eyed millennial optimism, which as an aging ex-hipster, I just couldn't get behind. But I didn't even look into it enough to decide that I didn't like it. I'm going to admit something that is going to make you laugh. Like I'm going to really take you on the journey of ignorance right here. Because the only thing I knew about Arcade Fire was that they were Canadian. I would often get them mixed up with another band that I've never listened to, but I'm sure I've been exposed to. Well, they're from Canada, and their name starts with A and AR. ARC, so Arctic Monkeys and Arcade Fire. Seriously? If you asked me before I started doing this video, which one of those is from Canada, I would say, I don't know. And then on top of that, because I associate Canada with snow, I think I also got Snow Patrol in there. So that's what I want to share with you. Like I want to share with you like what it's like to listen to this huge band that's influenced a lot of the music that I really like right now. The best example, obviously, is Black Country New Road, who apparently, with their album Answer From Up There, was trying to make their version of Funeral. I did listen to Funeral after finishing this review. I'll talk about my thoughts at the very end of this video. It shouldn't be this way. I shouldn't not be aware of Arcade Fire. I mean, just looking it up. I mean, they're from Canada. Like, as much as you can be, I am a Canada-phile. I talk about a lot of Canadian music on here. I love going to Canada, especially French Canada. I am a professor of French. I did once, in one of my classes, point out that Arcade Fire played Poupée de Cire, Poupée de Son by Serge Gainsbourg and France Gall. They did a cover of it. So, like, how can I not like this band? They're Canadian and they're French Canadian. And even just a little bit of research into them, I realized that when Butler, that sounds like the right last name. I know the first name is Win. All he does is win. But like when I read his biography, he really resembles me or people I grew up with. He has a fairly privileged upbringing. He went to Exeter. That's where my father went. I didn't go to Exeter. I didn't have good enough grades. But like going to Exeter is like, whoa. Like that's kind of a big indicator of sort of like societal privilege and place. And then he ends up going to McGill. And so, even when I listen to his lyrics, like he's writing songs on this album that are songs that I've actually already written back when I used to make music. So there is a real sort of simpatico between how this band sees the world and presents it and the way that I see the world. So it makes sense that maybe I wouldn't like that because, it's a lot easier to like relate to music that you can't relate to. You know what I mean? Like music that you don't feel represents you. So if we get back to this concept of it being a sermon, the thing about this album is just, it's the earnestness. So as an Xer, and I know generational things are fuzzy, and in a lot of ways I'm like a millennial, in a lot of ways I'm like a zoomer, a lot of ways I'm like a boomer. I get it. But there is, regardless, this is not some kind of hard and fast rule. But in general, the cultural milieu that I grew up in was very jaded and very dark, which of course is terribly ironic because I grew up in the easiest time in American history. What are you going to do? But their earnestness and their sort of lack of sarcasm and their ability to communicate the world, like it does present music that is very on the nose, very on the button. A lot, even the title, We. And that might be a joke, like French, like we. Yes. But like commenting as we, it's like, this is Us, the musical? I'd never seen that TV show, but I kind of get it. And like the signs of sort of this sort of pretension, this desire to be everything to all people. We shall call the album We. Who are we? And all these titles like part 1. And they have a prelude that's like the sound of someone bumping their ankle into a coffee table. That was prelude. But at times, and when I like them the most is when their music and their lyricism gets a little bit unsettling. That's where I think it's the most interesting. Now, getting back to this cringy clickbait title, I want to define what I mean by calling them dad rock. Now, dad rock is a pejorative term, but I don't think it has to be. Just this morning, I realized that the Wu-Tang Clan are dad rock. Oh my God, did I just say that? Oh my God, dude. Check your comments. I can't help it. It's a damn good point. But what makes dad rock is maturity, right? A certain amount of maturity in the music, even if it's made by young people, it lacks that sort of fiery, dramatic youth. It's like after the fire of youth has been extinguished, and people who listen to it after the fire of their youth has been extinguished. It's often well crafted. It's often made by people who are comfortable, who live a family life and are making music for people who are in that family life, where the fire of youth has been replaced with the purpose of obligation. And on the whole, most dad rock is quite good. I'm just right now coming around to Steely Dan. They're actually probably a pretty good band. That's how I knew I was getting old. So when I'm calling them millennial dad rock, it's cute. But I don't think it's an insult, because especially the position that they take on this album of coming from a place of comfort and ease, commenting on the way life is, I think the desired audience are people who grew up listening to their music with the fiery optimism of youth and now look and see the world and think about the problems with the world and the ways that we need to solve it through collectiveness and being together, and this whole kind of optimism sort of like transitioned into a sort of world-weary, far away from the problems observation, which is what I think it must be to be a millennial dad. Okay, let's get to the album. I like to pick one song that I think is a good example of the music, and this is my favorite song on the album. This is one of 2 songs which I think are just great. I think there's like 7 songs on this album, something like that. There's not that many songs. Only a couple of them do I think are like bad. You can guess which ones if you know the album. But there's a couple that I think are just great. And Age of Anxiety Part 2, Rabbit Hole, is just great. I'll put a link to it up there if you want to listen to it. Just click on the banana. This is what I mean by like preachy but also slightly unsettling. Like we have these nice piano chords, quiet and solemn, and then these lines. Rabbit hole, yeah. Plastic soul, yeah. Like the way that the yeah comes in is a little bit just like you're a little bit out of sorts. And of all the kind of comments, to a certain degree, I think you could criticize this band as, sort of saying like social media is bad, man. Everyone's going down a rabbit hole, man. Things used to be different. You could criticize them for that a little bit here. But I think this song does it the best, or at least with the most delicateness. It's the least ham-handed, or Canadian bacon-handed. I swear to God, that joke is not on my notes. I don't have a script. I just have notes. I do this in one take. So if I had to do this over again, I would not make the Canadian bacon-fisted joke. So Canadian Bacon Fist is also my favorite hardcore band from Hull. They're really good. What I like about this song in particular is the way it segues into a electronic part. And I think I like their electronic bits more than their acoustic bits. It reminds me a lot of Giorgio Moroder and his work. I recently watched the movie American Gigolo. And he did the whole soundtrack to that, kind of that way, kind of craftworky. Lots of really good production details. Like this is one where the more you listen, the more you like it. Like put your headphones in, really listen to it carefully, and like just hear all the little things that are happening. Apparently, it's by Jeff Barrow, like the Portishead Jeff Barrow, which is great. And I think these are the best lyrics. Like I like the idea of talking about a rabbit hole. Like that's an interesting condition that we live in, where we live in like. We are always one click away from rabbit holes, right? Like you might be watching this video on a Professor Sky rabbit hole. You might have decided that you saw some video of mine like 6 months from now, and then you're watching all my old stuff, and now you're on a Professor Sky rabbit hole. Or maybe you're on an Arcade Fire commentary rabbit hole. Or maybe you're on a stupid clickbait rabbit hole. Maybe you're on a dad rock rabbit hole. Whatever it is, there's all these rabbit holes that we go down and we get lost. And that is part of this album's strength, and its weakness is its desire and usual success in presenting grand commentary on the human condition in 2022. But I like the lyrics here. There's a lot of sort of classical references, a lot of Greek references. Dad built the labyrinth and we were born in it, blowing on the cartridge of Kid Icarus. So that's just a fun reference to a retro video game called Kid Icarus, which I never played. Nobody played Kid Icarus, okay? Don't let anybody my age lie to you. We only know about Kid Icarus because of Smash Brothers, and that's it. And yes, I called it Smash Brothers. But I like this. I like this because it's playful. With all the earnestness, I want a little more playfulness. So I like the idea of built the labyrinth and we were born in it, blowing on the cartridge. If you don't know, with old Nintendo cartridges, you had to blow on them in order for them to work. It was a weird superstition. Born into the abyss, new phone, who this. So, I like that. New phone, who this is part of our current state. And I really like it. I like the way it develops. It's almost like a quasi-rap part here where he starts rapping, or at least talking about fell asleep to the television. There's a lot of themes of television and falling asleep. Almost like I Feel Love, Donna Summer kind of vibe here. And I really like it when the female vocalist, who apparently is the wife of the person who does it. I mean, it's really cute. This band's really cute. No matter what, you can't say they're not cute. Like a husband and wife making music this good together, that's cute. Subscribe, smash the like bucket, unsubscribe if you if you hate the title of this video that much. That's fine. And tell me in the comments your thoughts on Arcade Fire, because I am actually quite interested. But I really do like her singing on here about the rabbit hole goes on forever, because that's true. That's one of the weirdest things about the internet is it's created infinite loop. It's created infinite holes. You know, like if whatever hole it is, it's infinite. Eventually there's some like real drums in here as well. And then the whole album is co-produced by Nigel Godrich of Radiohead fame. So I really like Nigel Godrich's production. I don't always hear it, but on this song I do. Because there's this little wailing synth note. That's Nigel Godrich. So the two things I know about this song. They're cute, and that's Nigel Godrich. I'm going to go through the rest of the album. It starts off Age of Anxiety 1, kind of pianos and voices. That unsettlingness, I really like it. I was listening to the first album for the first time, driving my daughter to school, and there's these sounds in the right channel, and I thought my daughter was like choking on a cheese stick, a polio string cheese. I was like, "Are you okay?" And she's like, "Yeah, I'm fine." It was just the sounds, but I like that. It almost sounds like a heartbeat as well. Nice guitar times, gentle layers. Eventually, kind of like an 80s drum machine comes in, breaks into a whole nother part. This album's very ambitious and very well made, very well put together. Even if I don't always like it, it has a lot of great layers to it, which is really nice. But just some of these lines, like "fight the fever with TV," "I can't stop crying and I think I really mean it, but tears mean nothing to me," "trying to feel something in the age of anxiety." So I'm of two minds. One mind, hey, shut up. Knock it off. It's not a good point. Oh, is it the age of anxiety? Is that what you're going to be doing with your artistic gift? You're going to be telling us that we're anxious? Mr. and Mrs. Rockstar? And then there's the other part of me. It's like, why not? I mean, we do live in an age of heightened anxiety. Whether or not we should live in an age of heightened anxiety, you know, whether or not things actually are as bad as we feel they are, if we feel them that bad, it doesn't really matter. Inside of our brain, it doesn't matter. So why not? Why not have a song about anxiety? And especially when we think about who they're making music for, I believe they're making music for people like themselves. I don't think this is made for 20-year-olds. I think this is made for 30-year-olds, made for 35-year-olds, made for 40-year-olds. You know, especially when you are a parent, you have obligations, and you see these things and try to fall asleep. It really is a middle-agey feeling expression, a middle-agey kind of anxiety. This isn't the anxiety of, is there going to be a job for me when I graduate college? It's the anxiety of, like, what's happened to our world, which is a 30-year-old problem, not a 20-year-old problem, I think. Next song is called Prelude. I'm going to play it again for you. Let me just go over here. It's great. It's a great song right there. I'll play it again for you. Really, just meaningful. And then that leads on to the song End of the Empire, parts 1 through 3. Dear God. Dear God. What is up with these parts? One, I want to like Arcade Fire. I love Canadian culture. I do. Like, but it's hard to love something that has parts 1 through 3. I don't know. But it's an interesting song. I like how the first part of it has this kind of piano and voice that go together, almost kind of Flaming Lips-ish, talking about where California used to be. I guess this is a environmental song to a certain extent. It was at this point I realized the musician who this album actually reminds me the most of is solo John Lennon. So not Beatles John Lennon, but solo John Lennon. Both with the preachiness, the slight unsettlingness, some of the string arrangements. At times, like even like this song, like the piano reminds me of like piano off of Imagine. And sometimes his voice sounds like Nilsson, who was always friends with Lennon. I don't know. Maybe you hear that, maybe you don't. The End of the Empire. So remember how I said, like, I relate because I feel like I am this guy? In 2002, when I lived in France, I worked in a part of France called Vendée. I was just a young man on the waves. I was a jellyfish on the ocean of life. And I wrote a song called The End of the American Empire. And people didn't like it when I brought out my guitar and sang. There's nothing quite like the look on people's face when they see that you're about to play and sing and they've seen you before and they're like, we got to sit through this. This is rough. But the one song all those Europeans liked was my song, The End of the American Empire. Looking back at it, it's not a very good song. I do rankle a little bit at a Canadian band singing about the end of the American Empire, only for this reason. I don't care if America is better or worse than Canada, right? That's not an interesting argument. But like, when you're American, you have to really bear the weight of the American Empire. You have to carry the guilt, carry the responsibility. You know, when you go traveling, you know what Americans do, right? When they go traveling, they lie. And they say they're Canadian, so they don't have to explain what they think about Trump, okay? That's what it's like for Americans when you travel. Hi, my name is, do you like Trump? I guess this is better than do you like Bush? But those kinds of questions. So it's a little bit weird. I mean, I guess the guy actually, grew up in America, so it's maybe a little bit more personal for him. But when it comes to this kind of preachy side, I'm not a big fan of sort of grand statements about the end of the American Empire sort of coming from an adjacent position. Like, I think that's something that we should be talking about as a country. But feel free to call me an American chauvinist. That's something which I have been inviting my audience to call me quite a bit. But I recognize that it may be true. The second part of this reminds me a lot of Mott the Hoople. All the young dudes has that kind of epic sound. This is what I associate a lot more with them, like music that's made for everyone to be in a crowd doing the millennial whoa, kind of had that feeling. Part 3 is called Leave the Light On. This is all according to some lyrics that I found. I didn't used to get high, can't sleep with the television on. I like this tying together with the other part. I really like this part. Again, reminds me a lot of that sort of John Lennon feel. And then comes the second song, which I think is a great song, End of the Empire, Part 4, Sagittarius. Dude, you're going to throw Sagittarius in there? They save it. But because then the next song talks about Gemini. So I'm like, if they're going to be an astrology group talking about the end of America in astrology, but this is really nice. It continues the synths from the previous song, and then it's all based on the concept of I unsubscribe. And right now as I'm speaking, again, this is not in my notes at all. But what I realize this is doing is it's kind of Tom York lyrics. It's sort of how Tom York writes lyrics, where he finds something that's a commonplace statement, like new phone, who this, like I unsubscribe, and then repeats it and puts it in a setting with Nigel Godrich producing where you have to think about the meaning of it and extend it out so that this throwaway statement of technological life gets reappropriated and changed. Maybe that's why I like these lyrics so much. I just like repeating I unsubscribe and what does it mean. Really, really good lyrics here. Still preachy as all get out, but I like the kind of horns in the back, and the voice even also reminds me at times of Pedro the Lion. And I didn't review Pedro the Lion's last album because I didn't like it. But the album before that I thought was a masterpiece. So, and realistically the albums aren't that different. So maybe it might be just how I'm feeling when I'm listening to this music. I do like the beeps in the sound. They're like kind of confusing sounds, like the guitars sound like a race car. I really like the female vocalist voice in the back. He makes reference to Virgil and the Inferno. It's okay. It's a little bit too much, talking about America being the Inferno. But I really like, there's the best part of his vocals on the entire album. There's this little tiny moment where there's a frailty in his voice right before it kicks more into gear. And that's really the best there. I really like how he says F season 5. Again, that's some great lyricism because I don't know what he's talking about. I don't know if he's talking about some specific TV show, but it is true that in our lives, like, we find this great passion for a TV show, and then at a certain point we just get mad at it and say F season 5. It's good. It's a really good way of describing the capriciousness of our taste. And then he starts talking about Sagittarius A, which due to some research is like some black hole in the very center of our galaxy. It's weird, okay? A week and a half ago, I reviewed King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, who had a song called Kepler 22b. So these are two songs within the same month that talk about like thinking about things, extraterrestrial bodies that reflect on our current position and our desire to get out of where we are as a species. What's next? Like Hubble trouble? Next song is called The Lightning One. Oh, the epicness. Piano and blurring synth. This really reminds me a lot of Bruce Springsteen. I don't know if that's one of their influences. A lot of the things I'm saying about Arcade Fire, I realize I could be saying about Bruce. And I think I do like Bruce quite a bit. But it took me a while to get into his music, partly because he often comes from that stance of like, let me tell you about the world, and this kind of like optimism as well. But nice like accordion here, and acoustic guitar. I don't know what he's saying in this chorus. I swear to God, he says, don't crate on me. Is that like a crater? I was going to look it up, but I thought, you know what? It'll be more fun. I think he's saying, don't crate on me. I don't know what that means. Feel free to tell me in the comments what he actually says. And if he does say don't crate on me, what is it to crate on someone? Here has the worst moment on the album. Just absolutely, just the absolute nadir. The lowest point on this album. Some you win, some you lose. Just like, oh, dude. Oh, god damn. Nigel, aren't you in the studio with them? Can't you tell them not to say some you win, some you lose? Then Lightning Part 2 really kicks it into Bruce Springsteen gear, even starting off with 1, 2, 3, 4, and having kind of like a yell sound in the back. But I really like it because, again, it uses the nice Bruce trick of having bells going along with the voice. I like the theme of the lightning arriving, and I hear the thunder, a day, a month, a week. The drummer is actually doing some interesting stuff here. Very anthemic. This is, again, what I expected more of from their music. And as I would come to learn later, listening to Funeral, this is more like their earlier stuff. It turns out I wasn't wrong about that millennial whoa stuff. Like, I wasn't wrong. I might have been narrow-minded. I might have been ignorant. I might have been old and bitter. And I might have been wrong. Okay. Next song is called Unconditional One. Again, I'm of two minds. Guitar and voice. It's called Lookout Kid. And first of all, it's got the best triangle action I've heard in a long time. Props to Arcade Fire for using a triangle. King Gizzard knows how to use a gong. Arcade Fire knows how to use a triangle. But this is just fatherly advice to his kid, or to their kid. And part of me is really bitter. Stupid. Oh, do. You have a do part? Oh, nobody's perfect. Oh my God, it's the biggest garbage in the world. And part of me is the dad. The same dad who legitimately cannot hear the song Only One by Kanye West without crying every time. I play the song on guitar with my kids. I cry every time. I am a dad. This advice is great. Trust your mind and trust your body. Interesting ideas. It's good to say nobody is perfect. He repeats it again, which is so damn cheesy. But also, like, it's really important. Like, do you know how hard it is to be a perfectionist? Do you know that your kids might be a perfectionist? Do you know how hard, like, my heart breaks. Like my son's a perfectionist. And like my heart breaks. It's like, dude, I love you. You don't have to be perfect. So you forgot the calculator when you went to the SATs this morning. Nobody's perfect. Maybe bring the calculator to the SAT. It's a small detail. It helps. But hey, nobody's perfect, you know? And so part of me hates the song and part of me loves it. And I'm just going to give it a big thumbs up. And this is where I came up with that concept of millennial dad rock, because who's this album for? It's not even for me. My kids are teenagers, you know? It's like these feelings that you have when you have responsibility, when you're trying to explain the world, when you're trying to show them. You want this good, positive, interesting, introspective, respectable music that also has a good and meaningful message for your kids. It is millennial dad rock, and that's not a bad thing. Unconditional 2, Race and Religion. This time the female vocalist takes over. I think her name is Regine, maybe. Really kind of new wavy sounds, which is cool, like synthesizers and congos, and kind of like, it almost reminds me of like the Miami Sound Machine at a certain part. And then I had a funny moment where I was like, oh my God, I just have to say it. This guy is trying to sound like Peter Gabriel so much, it's cringe. Like, seriously, he sounds like he is in a Peter Gabriel imitation contest. And then I read the credits. It's Peter Gabriel. So, it's hard to beat Peter Gabriel at a Peter Gabriel sounding contest. And that's actually a really good comp for Arcade Fire and Peter Gabriel. I respect the hell out of Peter Gabriel, but I will never listen to his music on purpose. Ever, ever, ever. And I don't... If you tell me your favorite band is Peter Gabriel, I'll shake your hand. I'll probably think that you have good taste in music and we can get along, and I'll ask you some questions, but I'll never listen to Peter Gabriel. You could shock my monkey with a sledgehammer, and I would just never, ever, ever intentionally listen to Peter Gabriel. And I think that's how it is with Arcade Fire as well, but they do a sort of similar thing. Another good dad rock band, Peter Gabriel. The album ends with the song We, I think maybe a 12-string guitar here. What's interesting about this is it's not epic. So it seems like it's building up to an epic ending, but it's not. Instead, what we have, and this is going to be my most biting commentary, but we have Jim Carrey / Matthew McConaughey on Instagram levels of profundity. I already know the I want to know the we. Just check in. Just give you some time to check in with the M and the E. I mean, seriously. Oh, they make it hard. This song, yeah. This is too much. This is too much. It's just too much. I want to give up. I want to give down. God damn it. I'm trying to be always positive. I'm trying real hard to be the shepherd, Ringo. But what a weird sort of liberal guilt anthem. I want to give down. Oh my God. And then I made the super mistake of reading Win Butler's description of the song, where he says the hipsters called it jazz, the hippies called it love, and we call it we. It's tough. It's tough. But it may not be for me, The song is not bad, but just those lines, it's a rough outro. So I listened to Funeral, and I liked it. But I actually didn't like it more than we. I mean, I had all the same problems with Funeral has the kind of pretentiousness, the titles with one in it, the sort of trying to be everything for everybody. It has the kind of anthemic feel. It has that same kind of position. So 32 minutes in, I think what I've determined is I'm just not a fan. But I see why people like it. Oh my God, what a crazy week this is going to be, because we haven't even gotten to my Jack Harlow video, which I'm planning on doing. And I got a great Thunderground Thursday, though, so that'll be less ambiguous. But these are my Patreons, so they give me money so that I can buy music that I like. And I probably won't be buying this, but, maybe I'll come to like it more. I will say... You guys are so generous that you keep making me add names on here. Talking about you, Raul and Patrick, and Aaron, and Cody. I have to read it backwards. So thank you to all these people for supporting me on patreon.com/Professor Sky. You're really helping me in my life, in my channel, and I love the support, even if I do resort to terrible clickbaity titles. Okay, and, you want to see the dogs? Look at how quiet they've been. Huh? Toby, come here. Come here, Toby. Come here. Come here. Say hi to everybody, Toby. Huh? They're not going to get up because they're in the sun. I don't blame you. I don't blame you. All right, there's the camera.